Hamad and the Pirates.
If we could turn time backward in its flight and blow away the sands that have covered up the ancient remnants of our past, we would find no Rome at all. Athens not even thought of. Even Egypt's Great Pyramid not yet begun. More than 5,000 years ago, beyond the eastern shore of the Mediterranean, the first flowers of civilization bloomed on the Gulf of Arabia. On the banks of the Euphrates River, Ur of the Chaldees, the birthplace of Abraham, flourished as the richest city in all Mesopotamia. And 2 days' sail southward beyond the river's mouth lay the small but wealthy island kingdom of Dilmun. Here came trading ships from Ur, heavy with cargoes of scented oils, woolen cloth, and silver. Others brought copper from Akan and luxuries from lands beyond the sunrise. Dilmun was an oasis, a desert island fed by artesian springs that bubbled up and made the land a garden paradise. But it was best known as a home of the fabled pearl divers of antiquity. And so beautiful were the pearls of Dilmun that they were known as the flowers of immortality. Legend says that Noah came here after the flood in search of the pearl of eternal life. But no great civilization lasts forever. And at last the sands of time moved in to cover the temples and the rich men's houses, burying the careful accounting books, the golden trinkets, the jars of offerings to the gods, and all the myriad signs of ancient glories. 2,500 years ago, Dilmun faded into legend and was forgotten. The centuries passed, until finally, with the coming of the Muslims, the little island re-entered the stream of history. But its age of greatness had been long forgotten. It even had a new name, Bahrain, and now its only fame was as a land of 100,000 tombs. Only now, more than 50 centuries after its beginnings, the probings of modern archaeology are beginning to piece together the story of Bahrain's past. Dilmun of the myths and fables becomes more real with each discovery. And the lectures in the new museum in the capital city of Manama draw fascinated listeners.
It seems each new excavation pushes back the dawn of recorded time. Who knows what future discoveries still lie ahead here on this island of Bahrain. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just unearthed a new find, which has been sealed in crates to be shipped to the International Archaeological Conference on Asian Antiquity. And now,
to a 12-year-old boy named Hamad, the treasures of antiquity were an open sesame to enchantment. Ancient relics seemed content to dream quiet dreams, remembering a time when wonders must have been as common in fact as they were in the tales his father used to tell. Tales of genies, enchanted palaces, and magical journeys. Bahrain today, in most ways, is a bustling modern country. But there are many signs that the past lives on. In fact, Hamad himself, during his summer vacation, followed a way of life almost as old as civilization. He worked as all-round helper aboard a pearling dhow. And later today, he'd be embarking upon what Bahrainis call El Ghaus al-Kabir, the big dive, or main pearling season. For some time now, Hamad had lived with his great-uncle, Ibrahim. Ibrahim was a master shipbuilder, supervising workmen who were skilled in ancient craftsmanship. Cutting teakwood ribs and planks by hand, they built the rugged little vessels known as dhows, which for centuries had plied the monsoon winds from Arabia to India and Zanzibar. Before coming to live with his great-uncle, Hamad, who was the orphan son of a Gulf sailor, had stayed in a series of foster homes. It had turned him into something of a loner, a boy who kept to himself and had never really had time for a childhood. Kids' games bored him. At least, that was what he said. Once or twice, a neighbor girl named Nurah had tried to break through Hamad's reserve, but without much success. At the waterfront, it was obvious to Hamad that this was no ordinary day. Policemen were everywhere, and they seemed to be searching every ship in the harbor. Whatever they were after must be pretty important. Well, the best way to find out about anything that was going on in Manama was to ask Ibrahim's old friend, Jumah.
Jumah!
A happy-go-lucky jack of all trades, Jumah would be Hamad's boss and teacher on the pearling Dhow.
What's happening here?
I don't know. Let's find out. Namshi.
What was going on was a search for 4 stolen crates of relics recently dug up by archaeologists excavating at Barbar, a few miles west. Part of the same shipment of relics Hamad had heard about earlier in the museum.
Significance, priceless. It must be found.
A missing treasure. Gold, perhaps.
Apparently, the authorities believed the thieves would try to smuggle the goods off the island. When they reached the Ghazala, the pearling Dhow they would be taking, the police had just finished searching it. Ibrahim was waiting to see them off.
Hello, Ibrahim.
Hello, Jumah. How are you?
Oh, tamam, alhamdulillah. I will take good care of the boy. Don't worry.
Hamad, this is for you.
Ibrahim's gift was a heavy-bladed pearl diver's knife, an acknowledgement that Hamad would soon be doing a man's work.
Shukran, ya ammi. Salam.
But the goodbyes had to be brief. The Ghazala was ready to cast off. From the dock, the daughters and nieces of the captain and crew sang their traditional send-off, praying for a successful voyage and a safe return.
Come on,
Come on,
Like the city, the harbor of Manama was a busy mixture of the new and the old. From dhows like Sinbad must have sailed to modern jetliners. At sea, Hamad's loneliness was gone. Here he was in his element. And the overnight sail would be as good as a holiday. Once they were anchored over the oyster beds, the vacation was over. The pearl diver's profession demands unrelenting hard work from early morning till the light fails in late afternoon. The waters of the Arabian Gulf are a good deal saltier than the open sea. This means greater buoyancy, so the divers must use weights to help them reach the bottom. The time-honored techniques used to build the pearling dhows are almost modern compared to those used by the divers. No masks or goggles, no fins, only a nose clip made of bone. All this has hardly changed since Dilmun first earned fame as the great supplier of pearls over 5,000 years ago. And to this day, Bahraini pearls are considered among the finest in the world. Each diver was half of a two-man team. On deck, his partner waited for the signal to haul him back to the surface as quickly as possible. The divers didn't get to take many breaks, but when they did, Jumah always made sure Hamad got the chance to get in some practice. Hamad tried to be serious about it, but Jumah wasn't about to let him. Neither was anybody else aboard. Most of the divers could stay underwater a good 2 minutes. But by the time Hamad reached the bottom, he was just about ready to start back again. The quantity, Jumah decided, was a bit more impressive than the quality. Hamad's haul included a clam, a scallop, and a couple of snails. Unfortunately, no oysters. Meanwhile, there was plenty of light left and still a lot of work to do. It wasn't until the end of day that the crew learned how well they had done. Then, under the watchful eyes of the captain and the first mate, and by tradition, in complete silence, the divers and their helpers opened the oysters. The old hands, of course, had found many pearls in their day, but to Hamad, it was still a new and exciting experience. Periodically, it was Jumah's job to gather the pearls for delivery to the captain for safekeeping. It looked like the start of a good trip. At the end of the voyage, the proceeds would be divided up according to previous arrangements. Part for the captain and part for the diving teams, who would all share equally. There would be no oyster stew for dinner, since the pearlers believe that returning the empty shells to the sea helps enrich the beds for the coming season. With one oyster bed depleted, they set sail for another. And so it went through all the sunlit hours of 5 summer days. On the afternoon of the 6th day, Hamad learned an important lesson in Gulf seamanship. An undersea freshwater spring. The name Bahrain means 2 seas. Perhaps because of the reservoir of fresh water which exists beneath this portion of the Gulf, and here and there bubbles up through the sea bottom. Now Hamad would learn how to fill a water skin right down at the mouth of the spring before the fresh water could mix with the salty.
Shab!
With the water bags full, they returned to the regular evening routine. While the enticing smell of dinner cooking wafted from the galley, Hamad set about making coffee. Just one of a long list of his small duties as all-round helper. Unfortunately, the Ghazala's peaceful schedule was in for a rude interruption. They were about to be hit by a shamal, a sudden violent windstorm from the north, common to this area. Safety demanded that they raise anchor and run with the storm using the auxiliary motor. Even if it did mean everyone had to go hungry for a while. Everything on deck had to be secured, and quickly. Only now, with the storm almost upon them, did Hamad remember he had flag duty. He would have to take it down before it could be ripped to shreds by the wind. The pearls were the captain's responsibility. They'd be safest if he carried them. Sunrise found Hamad exhausted but alive. He had no idea where he was. Land might lie just beyond the horizon, but which way? Chance, though, had done him one favor, floating him within reach of an undersea spring. But the water was too deep. Without a weight to carry him to the bottom, there was no way Hamad could ever reach the fresh water. All he could do was hang on and endure the passage of interminable hours and unbearable heat.
يامن ولد ضايع في البحر شيلوه لفوق السطح. ماي للولد يلا بسرعة. دامن ترس بالإشراع صدر البوم ينوب 135 سهيل. صار سيدي. يا مبارك خذ الولد الى تحت. يلا يا رجال ارجعوا الى اعمالكم. يا مبارك. نعم سيدي.
Four crates, numbered and labeled Barbar. These must be the same ones the police had been looking for in Manama Harbor. He'd been rescued by smugglers.
يا رجال ترى احنا مدفوعين. قارب سريع قادم من جهة الشمال.
On deck, the captain had spotted something in the distance.
مبارك.
He recognized it as a patrol boat capable of 23 knots and mounting 3 machine guns. one of the fleet assigned to control smuggling in the Arabian Gulf. We have 5 minutes, he said. Lower sail and prepare for a chase.
والله سيدي. انتبهوا يا رجال. نزلوا الأشرعة واستعدوا للمطاردة.
That, Hamad knew at once, was no standard auxiliary. What he didn't know yet was that there were 2 huge engines, and the second one was refusing to start. Without it, there was no way to outrun the patrol boat. Once they were out of danger, the big engines were shut down and the Dhow resumed its pose of innocence.
انت يا ولد عاشر ساعد الطباخ.
نعم سيدي.
It was clear to Hamad that he was in some kind of trouble, but just how bad it was, he didn't know. Meantime, he'd been told to help the cook, and it seemed safest to play dumb, follow orders, and not ask any questions. That evening, Hamad was invited to dine with the captain and crew. It was a princely feast, but hungry as he was, he couldn't enjoy it.
يا ولد, where do you come from?
From Bahrain.
Bahrain. That is indeed far away.
Yes, I know.
Tomorrow we will search for a fishing boat to take you ashore. Then you can go home.
Thank you.
Well, perhaps, Hamad thought. The Dhow sailed on through the night, silent as a gull. Hamad was determined to stay awake, so he wouldn't miss any chance for a getaway. But the long, exhausting day caught up with him. He awoke with a start in early dawn light. Was it the mainland or an island? Whichever, it would have to do. Hamad had escaped the big Dhow, but was he any better off? Not unless he could find people, food, and especially water. For all he knew, he could be hundreds of miles from any of them. Hamad's first reaction was to think he was seeing a mirage, but those walls were solid. There'd be people there and help, and maybe even a way home.
أحد هني؟ أحد هني؟ أحد هني؟
أهلا وسهلا. وين يا ولد؟
جيت من البحرين وضعت في البحر.
Hamad could hardly believe his ears.
حياك. تفضل.
The last thing he had expected was to be received as an honored guest.
هذه الجزيرة يا ولدي كانت مصيف حق شيخ عظيم.
شكرا يا سيدي.
His host soon satisfied Hamad's curiosity about the palace. It was indeed on an island, he said. It had been the summer residence of a great sheikh, and these decorated walls and painted ceilings had echoed to the sound of many voices and seen many great happenings unfold. But the sheikh had died here in the palace. By ancient custom, his family had moved away to leave the palace vacant until the time his heirs decided it would be proper to return, which could be many generations. He, the old man, had been left as caretaker to provide for the animals and maintain this reception room in case a passing traveler should happen by. Luckily for Hamad, supplies were shipped in once a week. The supply boat would give him a ride to the city of Dhow on the mainland, from where he should have no trouble finding his way home. And so, next morning, they set out for the shore with a donkey train consisting of 8 veterans and an apprentice.
خالد كيف حالك؟ طيب شلون الصحة؟ الله يسلمك. أهلا وسهلا كيف حالك؟ طيب.
The supplies were quickly loaded onto the pack donkeys, though the littlest one hadn't yet learned he was supposed to carry now and eat later.
سيدي.
نعم يا ولد.
شكرا جزيلا.
لا شكر على واجب.
طبعا الله.
حياك الله يا مال الكريم.
Late that morning, Hamad found himself approaching the unfamiliar docks of the city of Dhow, which lies on the Arabian coast about 300 miles south and east of Bahrain. The skipper had told Hamad how to find the shop of a Bahraini pearl merchant named Abdullah Latif, who might be able to help him find his way home. And now he added a few coins to go along with his good wishes.
يقدر يساعدك. الله يخليك ويسلمك يا سيدي.
And from minarets all over the city, the mueddins called the faithful to the noon prayer. The pearl shop was easy to find, but Abdullah Latif himself was away. He'd gone to Bahrain to buy pearls. For the first time, Hamad was beginning to feel how far from home he really was.
لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
The murmur of voices meant the brief noon prayer was over, and Hamad knew the streets would soon be full of people once again. With luck, he should be able to stay lost by mingling with the crowds. But wherever he went, he knew he'd have to stay alert. At the edge of the city lay a bustling square where town and desert met, where nomadic Bedou tribesmen came to buy supplies and sell their livestock. And here, as far from the docks and the smuggler's dhow as he could get, Hamad found his way. To a sea Arab like Hamad, the Bedou were figures out of legend, and they seemed to charge the air with a sense of wild and empty spaces. Obviously, the little caravan was preparing to leave. Out of curiosity, Hamad asked who they were and where they might be going. They were men of a Gahtan tribe, he was told, and they were heading for Rabiha, a small coastal town just a few miles from Bahrain. That was all Hamad needed to hear.
عجلوا متأخرين جدا لازم نمشي بأسرع وقت ممكن بإذن الله.
The caravan leader's name was Abu Khamis, and Hamad's Bahraini accent quickly convinced him that the boy was truly what he said he was.
أنا من البحرين وحاول أروح وطني. ممكن أجي معاكم يا سيدي؟
Ancient Bedou tradition insists that a traveler in need be given help, so Hamad was invited along.
أهلا وسهلا. تفضل.
Of course, he'd be expected to do his share of the chores, and Abu Khamis put him in charge of 2 of the water bags.
أنا رايح إلى الصحراء وأحتاج إلى قطرة. هذه كل اللي عندي.
In the desert, there was one thing he was going to need: a good-sized Bedouin headgear.
تعال نشوف.
If the caravan had been going directly to Rabiha, Hamad would have had only a few days' ride ahead of him. But first, they would go to the oasis of Ain Safi to pick up a herd of camels. That meant many days' journey across the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, the biggest, hottest, and driest sand desert in the world. At camp each night, Hamad did his best to make himself useful, tending the fire and helping to make the coffee. Each day's ride started before sunup to take advantage of the cool, early morning hours, which unfortunately didn't last for long. It seemed to Hamad that he was often hungry, usually thirsty, and always tired. But if his companions had learned to endure these hardships, well then, he would too. But endurance wasn't his problem so much as inexperience, because 2 days short of the next well, there was an accident with the last full water bag. The nearest water was now at Ain Safi, the oasis they were heading for, still 2 more days' ride away. Days that followed, Hamad was going to learn what real hardship was. The temperatures reached 145 degrees and more. The sand underfoot was too hot to touch, redoubling the heat by radiating it upward. Parching winds blew sands off the dunes and made it difficult just to breathe. Every mile was so much like every other that to Hamad they seemed to be covering the same piece of ground over and over again. There was no relief from the thirst, and the frustration of lakes that were only mirages. Then, amazingly, they were riding by real water.
Khamis!
مالح ما هو بزين بيقتلك.
Salty, Abu Khamis explained. One drink and you're dead.
الحمد لله عين صافي.
The oasis was a haven of plenty for all, where passing travelers could take time to relax and each, according to his own tribal customs, celebrate victory over the privations of the desert. Nearby, a suluki, the aristocratic hunting dog of Arabia, was tethered by the tent of someone Hamad guessed must be a rich and powerful sheikh. The rhythm of the coffee grinder's mortar and pestle was an open invitation to enjoy his hospitality. There were falconers among his retinue and a pair of beautiful hunting birds.
ممكن أشوف القناة؟
Hamad was welcome, the falconer said, to watch him work his bird. Meanwhile, Abu Khamis was already making preparations for the next leg of the journey. His purpose in coming here had been to pick up a herd of camels. He would be taking them to Rabiha for sale as transport animals. But first, he had to be sure they were capable of making the journey. were some of Abu Khamis's fellow tribesmen. Their leader was an old friend, happy to pass the time trading a few dozen of the traditional Bedou ways of saying hello. How are you?
عليكم السلام. حيا الله الريال. كيف حالك؟ والسلامة. شلون الجماعة؟ حياكم الله في عين صافي. الله يسلمك. محلكم. طول عمرك. أوليكم على تاليكم. كيف الصحة؟ يا مرحبا. حيا الله الريال. مساكم طيبين. والربع كلهم. شلونكم؟ هاي الساعة المباركة كلنا بخير ما ندلع. كيف الحال؟ الله يسلمك. طول عمرك. يا مرحبا. حيا الله الريال. كيف الصحة؟ وين الربع عنك؟ والله طيبين طال عمرك. نبي تنادونهم. والله حاضرين. حاضرين على الشارع. ترى على ما قال على ضيافتنا انتم كلكم.
Next morning, Abu Khamis and his men, with Hamad and the camel herd, were on their way toward the coast. Traveling would be easier now, because the sands of the empty quarter were behind them. But even dune country wouldn't be a problem much longer. Cars and trucks are doing more and more of the camel's work. And when the camel is no longer in demand, the Bedou's livelihood will be gone. And with it, his whole way of life, and its age-old traditions of courage and unquestioning hospitality. As they rode into Rabiha, Hamad realized more was ending than just his journey. But now he could smell the sea air, and the rest was easy. Within a few hours, he was entering Manama Harbor. He was almost home. It wasn't quite the homecoming he had expected, but at least someone had recognized him, or thought she had. Nurah, who lived just on the street.
Hamad. Yes, Hamad. I am alive, Nurah. But where is my uncle Ibrahim?
She told him that Ibrahim had gone to visit a cousin at the other end of the island and hadn't said when he'd be back.
The big dish?
Jumah was working at the big dish. The big dish was a satellite communications and tracking station that had been built a few miles south of Manama. A regular city bus went right by the gate.
من فضلك وين جمع عبد الله؟
نعم.
شكرا.
جمعة جمعة التزميه حمد
حمد
Hamad, you're alive? What happened? Hamad.
The big Dhow.
See what they've gone. خلاص Hamad.
The 4 boxes.
You're home, Hamad. Alhamdulillah ala salama. Yalla.
Jumah managed to get the rest of the day off, and they headed back toward Manama with Hamad talking all the way. had reached the police fort when Hamad came to the part about the patrol boat chasing them, and the crates of treasure being thrown overboard, and the island of the 3 trees. And Jumah began to sense the happy presence of opportunity. This was no time for Hamad to go and tell the authorities his story. As he explained, the crates might not even be there anymore. Wouldn't it be better to go and look and bring back whatever they found? If they were successful, they might even be thought of as heroes. He knew where he could borrow a boat, and they'd be back in Manama the day after tomorrow. It was a remarkably good and quick job of persuasion. Before they left, though, Hamad insisted on leaving a note for Ibrahim. Otherwise, he would learn of Hamad's return from Nurah and then worry over why he had disappeared again. The note explained where he was going and assured Ibrahim that he'd be back the day after tomorrow and that there was nothing to worry about. Jumah had been sailing the Gulf most of his life. He was sure he could find the island of 3 trees from the few clues Hamad had been able to give him. In fact, he was so sure they'd return with the boatload of treasure that he made up a song about it. They sailed through the night, singing like children on their way to a picnic. A clay tablet inscribed in some unknown language. Round ceramic seals with strange writings. No gold, no jewels, not even an amber bead. Not much of a treasure, but surely no reason for Jumah to get this angry. Then Hamad realized that his old friend must have been hoping to make a little profit on the side. But Jumah couldn't ignore the humor of the situation for long.
I'll find the next one. I found another one over there.
We'll have to move over to it.
Get rid of the box! Get rid of the box!
وقعنا في مصيبة.
Fisherman, where did you get that box?
I found it under the sea.
Belongs to us, and we will take it.
But, Captain, it's full of junk. Then, it's yours.
يلا يا رجال ارفعوا الصندوق الى فوق البوم. Thank you so much. Now, go. We have work to do.
Jumah had no idea where Hamad had got to, but he had to follow orders and leave, or else. Jumah finally did see where Hamad had gone, it was impossible to do anything about it. If one of those divers looked up, Hamad would be discovered. It'd be safer on the rudder, under the overhang of the stern. The captain recognized it as a British minesweeper, HMS Yarnton, on temporary duty to the Sheikh of Bahrain.
ارفع الصناديق اللي فوق بسرعة وشيل البوارة حالا.
يلا سيدي.
Aboard the Yarnton were Bahraini police who had been alerted by Ibrahim as soon as it read Hamad's letter. A big dhow and an island with 3 trees. Just what they were looking for.
That's the one. Right. Action stations.
Hands to action stations. Hands to action stations.
By now, Hamad had seen how he might slow down the smuggler's escape. He would cut all but a few strands of the steering rope that controlled the rudder.
Stand to, policy surface, with HET load, load, load. Stood to, surface starboard, bearing green 15. Target! Roger. There's the dial. Roger, sir.
shallow water, a sandbar. It was possible to steer with the throttles, but not well enough.
مبارك خلاص ما في فايدة.
Smugglers turned out to be part of a gang that had been active in the Gulf for some time. If they'd escaped, they would have made quite a haul, because the gold and jewels Jumah had dreamed of were there after all, in one of the other crates. Hamad's second homecoming was a lot more impressive than the first had been. But he knew what it really meant. The adventurer had returned to become the orphan boy once more. But for today, he was a celebrity. And that meant that the neighborhood youngsters were eager to hear his own first-hand account of all that had happened from the moment the storm had hit the Pearling Dhow. But even the most fascinating true tale of adventure is only history. And there was lots of daylight left, and somehow one thing just blended into the next. And that was what made Hamad's homecoming complete. That was his real reward, the treasure found after many dangers. He had already done a pretty good job proving himself as a man. Now at last, he could enjoy himself as a 12-year-old boy.